In terms of bee-friendly gardening, I should mention, so bees can't see red. So when you're planting, don't plant red flowers because they'll look black. A bee has a different spectrum of light and color that they see. So purples, indigos, oranges, yellows, those are the ones that they're most attracted to. And also planting things that will bloom at different points of time throughout the season, especially late blooming, because that's when the hives are really stressed. They've got this huge population that's boomed up through the summer, and then the nectar starts to dry up and there's not as much for them to forage on. So planting some late blooming flowers is also really great. And you'll get lots of bees coming to those because they're so few and far between.
I think we need to do our best to try and preserve these agricultural lands that we've got, make sure that the farming practices are good, that we have good quality products coming out, and that if there's access, that's not necessarily a bad thing. People will use it, and I know that full well. We're using lots of it. So
what the thought leaders who I've followed say is that this work has to happen locally before we can make any change globally. And so I think what I hope is that the work we're doing as a network and as the individual organizations who are feeding people, who are supporting farmers, our local farmers, is that we're demonstrating the impact that local food systems can have on so many of our problems, in terms of disconnection, in terms of climate change, in terms of health and well-being.
Hi, I'm Sue.
And I'm Heath.
Together, we've created the Backyards to Boardrooms video podcast series.
Why? Because our planet has a problem. It is not very sustainable.
Luckily, we've come up with a solution to help. On Backyards to Boardrooms, we use the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to highlight the work being done in our communities.
We chat with local leaders about causes such as sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, and climate action. Backyards to Boardrooms,
where local action creates global impact. Hi, Heath.
Hi, Susan.
You have an accent? No.
No? Did I sound like an accent?
It's sort of. Maybe like a farmer
What?
Joe.
Hey, Susan.
There.
I could do something else. I don't know.
Welcome to episode 5.
Here we are, episode
5.
Over halfway mark.
Oh, just over halfway. And
Yeah.
how convenient that you had a Farmer Joe accent, because this episode is about managing natural resources.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
And we talked to 3 very interesting people.
And informative.
Yes. I learned a ton from this one.
Yeah. And like with every episode, it turns into something that I really wasn't expecting how cool this episode was going to turn out to be. But it's we're just going to let you listen to what's up and coming. But we're talking about Sustainable Development Goals number 2, which is zero hunger, number 12, which is responsible consumption and production, and
Number 15, life on land. Speaking of, we talked about bees
yes,
with Olivia Hoffert from Planet Bee Honey Farm.
We also talked to Russ Phillips from North Okanagan Valley Gleaners.
Yes.
And our last guest.
Liz Blakeway from Land to Table Network Society.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
So today on Backyards to Boardroom, we have Olivia with us from Planet Bee here in Vernon. And during our pre-conversation, we got on to a very long topic about sustainability, which is everything that this podcast is about. So I'm really excited and really grateful, Olivia, for the amount of effort you put in to preparing for this interview and your passion for sustainability. Will you give us a little self-introduction? Tell us about what you do and a little bit about Planet B.
For sure. So Planet B is my family business. It was founded in 1997 by my dad, and he had been a lifelong beekeeper. And when I was about 7, he started Planet B in Armstrong on our family farm. We had about 10 acres there where he ran hives, and we just opened up a small little store. And from the beginning, it was always about educating people about the importance of bees and growing a fascination for honeybees and alleviating some of the unnecessary fear that my dad had noted that a lot of people had this fear of bees and didn't know much about them. And back in the 90s, there wasn't really the push around save the bees that there is now. So we've really seen the business kind of grow and the awareness grow over 28 years now that it's been going on. And I myself went away, did university, worked in the wine industry for a while, lived abroad for a while, found myself back at the honey farm. And just in the last few years, it's just been a slow kind of transition from my dad's generation to myself and my brother sort of stepping in at the helm. And throughout the last little while, I've brought my personal passion for sustainability to the business, although sustainability was always kind of part of the business and being focused on bees. Bees need a healthy environment, and without a healthy environment, we wouldn't have a business. There would be no bees. So it all sort of circles back and connects really easily.
And thank goodness none of you had an allergy to bees.
Yes, and hopefully never develop one as time goes on.
Have you been stung by a bee?
Of course, yes. Last time was probably 5 years ago. I do swell up a lot, so try not to. Yeah.
Try to avoid that part of it. Don't make them angry.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us a little bit about your passion for sustainability.
Yeah, I think it all started probably in high school social studies class when my teacher showed us an inconvenient truth, and that must have been like 2007. And I remember just having this like aha moment, and I remember making my whole family watch the documentary with me and being like, come on guys, like, this is a problem. And just kind of throughout my life just been trying to take positive steps, and I've tried to take roles and jobs in my 20s that kind of reflected a little bit about the environment. Or I worked at an eco-friendly clothing store for a while. I worked in the natural health food store for quite a few years, and just businesses that align with my value, which is people, planet, profit, but equal attention to all three, and not necessarily one over the others. But it's been a journey, and I found myself back at the family business after all that. Yeah. So it's kind of great to bring the knowledge from outside back into the Planet B space.
Earlier you mentioned that it's a generational thing that taught you to go after passions or things that interest you to make a living rather than doing a job and not working at something that really inspires you. So it's really great that you were able to do that.
It speaks a lot to taking care of your mental health, right? If you're doing something with your life that aligns with your values and your goals.
Yeah.
So back at the family business, Planet B, I gotta be honest, talking about this episode, talking about this interview with you, I envisioned myself in a bee suit. Because I think that would be super cool. But I really want to know what kind of things you do at Planet B that are sustainable, that take care of the bees, and why do you do them?
Yeah, so I'm a really big proponent of giving people a space to interact with something, building up their appreciation for it and their connection to it is going to in turn...
So I'm going to get into a bee suit? Is this actually going to happen?
Yes, Sue, you're going to get into
Release
a bee
the bees,
suit.
Yeah.
Season 2, stay tuned.
Yeah. So we
Sue
offer...
will being...
B-E.
For the B roll.
For the B roll.
Okay. I remember, like, as a kid, we started doing presentations for school groups. And so, like, as a elementary school student myself, bringing my class and my little brother's class to the farm, and my dad opening up the hive in front of them and showing them the bees. And that's really kind of the cornerstone experience that we try to offer, is like an inside glimpse into the beehive and how amazing they are as insects. I think there's so many lessons we can learn from bees and how they really put the betterment of the colony ahead of themselves. There's no individual interest. There's no stealing all the honey for yourself. There's no, they're very much all about the betterment of the hive. And that even from the top down, like the queen bee, she will, if she's feeling like she's sick or old, losing her fertility, she'll actually help them raise a new queen and she'll leave. She just gives over power. She doesn't try to hold on to power or stay as the queen for as long as possible. It's just amazing the ways that they put the betterment of the community ahead of themselves. And I think that's really admirable.
I envision a hive of a retirement hive for old queens somewhere. There's a bunch of queen bees just laying out on the deck of the hive, drinking mead.
I was going to comment on the collaborative nature of the hive being like the collaborative nature in Vernon, but I do like this topic of the queen bee retirement.
That's a similar vision my dad has for his retirement, is
sitting
on the steps of the store in a rocking chair, drinking mead and greeting people. So.
Okay, so then we want to kind of go into what the problem is. So what the problem perhaps that bees face, but maybe more so in that the problem that you're trying to solve with having this sustainable honey farm.
So yeah, I think like 2008 was when people started noticing these mass die-offs of hives and colony collapse disorder, and it hitting the mainstream media and people hearing about it. It really allowed us a chance to help educate and do our own research and stay kind of on the cutting edge of what do we know, what don't we know. And a lot of them are environmental factors. I mean, it's pesticide use, it is habitat loss, it's climate change. Honeybees don't have a super strong immune system to begin with. And so you start introducing small changes or long-term exposure to pesticides, and that immune system may just diminish to the point where we were seeing things that, diseases or bacteria that always was in nature, always existed in beehives, never caused issues. Suddenly, those same bacteria and diseases were causing issues. So something had happened to weaken the hive to where now these things were becoming threats to them. And then we started empowering people about what you can do at an individual level to help the bees. So even like our messages are usually around buying organic fruits and veggies if you can, because then there will be less pesticides going into the environment, limiting your household use of pesticides, so around your own yard, and then planting bee-friendly flowers to provide forage for pollinators, and not just honeybees, but all native pollinators. And there's so many species in Vernon and in the North Okanagan that, like bumblebees and mason bees and all these other kinds of bees, we really also educate people and share the amazing world of those bees with people too.
Are we seeing even a slightest improvement since some of this awareness and education has been put out? Is the industry seeing an improvement in bee health and safety?
So there's more hives. So like honeybee colonies have been growing, the number of them. I would say there's some positive signs for species like bumblebees. So they have been seeing a resurgence of those, which has been amazing. I personally have noticed a lot more bumblebees in the last couple summers than ever before. And those are some of my favorite bees. They're so docile. They're so unlikely to sting us. And they're just fuzzy, and you could pet them if you want to.
Really? I've never tried that. Yeah. It's great to hear that education and awareness is actually making a slight dent in the issue. So that's really great.
Can you tell us, Olivia, because I don't think we started with this, why are bees so important?
So it's hard because the first stat we go to is about food security, which it's hard to say that an insect is important for its benefit to humans, but we always start with that because that helps people realize, hey, if honeybees disappeared, there'd be 33% less food to feed the world. So for food security,
big number.
pollination is linked to 1 in 3 spoonfuls of food that we eat. So things like blueberries, almonds, there would be none if there were no honeybees to pollinate.
So that might be one thing AI cannot fix.
Mm-hmm.
Pollinating. Here we are.
Here we are.
Thanks for coming in, Russ.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. We've got Russ Phillips here from the North Okanagan Valley Gleaners. He's the plant manager, and he's going to fill us in on everything they're doing over there with regards to managing natural resources in our region.
So I actually got to be in the plant earlier this year, cutting vegetables and doing stuff, working with the volunteers and chatting with people. And I met Russ, and I was like, I need to design something so we can have more of a conversation about what you do, because I think it's so cool.
It is so cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty fascinating organization, and we're one of 3 in BC that are doing the same thing.
Wow.
What is that thing? Can you tell us about
Yeah, so what we do at the North Okanagan Valley Gleaners is we take an old concept of gleaning. So the word gleaners is actually, it's a big biblical term, and it comes from the Old Testament. And it's, I think you'll find it fascinating how God intended the nation of Israel to conduct themselves with their farming practices way back when. And here's the verse. It says, Leviticus 19:9 and 10. It says this: when you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Do not go over your vineyard a second time, or pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for the poor and the foreigners, because I'm your God. So it's basically saying to the nation of Israel, leave the stuff around the edges. People can pick up what they need for their own use. It was his way of taking care of people that maybe didn't own land or didn't have access to land to farm on their own. So,
right.
And so you do that with the gleaners.
Yeah, we've taken that concept, that Old Testament concept, and we've applied it to modern life here. So we're taking stuff that otherwise wouldn't be used, the gleaning stuff. We're making a product out of that. We make a dried vegetable soup mix, and we're using waste vegetables that otherwise wouldn't be used. So it could be too big, too small. Could be, if you get stuff from a wholesale facility, they're not going to spend the money to have a laborer go through a bin of produce and weed out all the bad ones. They're just going to get rid of that bin. So we take all that stuff, we truck it in. That's our big cost, to truck it in. And then we make a dried soup mix out of it. We've got big dehydrators. We chop up the stuff. We dice it, clean it up, make sure it's of good use. And then we mix soup out of it, and we send it all over the world to different charities. And we give that away for free, and it's their cost to get it from our location from our plant to wherever it's going.
And it's not just international shipping. You do support some local initiatives as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So, I don't give any of our dried produce away. All of our dried products. So we'll make a dried soup mix. We've got dried beans. We've got all dried apples, all sorts of that kind of stuff. We don't give that to anyone in Canada. Instead, we give them fresh produce. So if I have potatoes or, peppers or carrots or something come in and the food bank needs them, or the Upper Room Mission or Salvation Army or whatever, we give fresh stuff away to them.
Because I imagine you have more produce than you know what to do with.
Yeah, for example, because it's harvest time right now, we had our warehouse was full. We have 90,000 pounds that we're able to put in our coolers. And our coolers were full. The Fraser Valley Gleaners, they can hold more than we can. They have a bigger cooler system. And they were full. And then the Oliver Gleaners was full. They couldn't take any. And I was messaging with the manager of the Fraser Valley Gleaners, and he had to reject 80,000 pounds of produce that week because all of us were full and none of us could take it. So,
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Mind you, that's harvest time. That's an unusual circumstance, but the difference with us and a lot of the food banks is that we're able to take large quantities of stuff, whereas other, say a food bank, they'll have a cooler that, you know, they're going to have, maybe they'll get meat in or some vegetables or some other perishable items, but they wouldn't have room for, you know, 50,000 pounds at a time, that kind of stuff, large quantities, but we can take those quantities. So that makes us different.
I think that's great, and plays a big role in sustainability. Specifically in this episode, we're talking about no hunger, right? We're making sure that our food gets around the world and there's less waste of food. We're being sustainable in our consumption and production of products. Russ, can you tell us about your passion for this business? How did you get into doing this, and why is it important for you?
Yeah, so that's a long story. My story is how long do you want to be? But I actually spent a lot of time overseas, and so I was working in I worked in Indonesia after the tsunami. Before then, I was with Samaritan's Purse. I worked in Uganda on some other projects, and so I've seen things in different countries. I've seen poverty, and I've seen help be a part of projects where we're trying to improve people's lives and give them, you know, a hand up kind of thing. And so for me, that's come full circle working with Gleaners. We were living up in 100 Mile House, and I got a call. They wanted me to come down and be a part-time pastor at a local church. And I thought, yeah, Lord, that's where the big money's at. Half-time pastor. Yeah. Woo. So
insert sarcasm here.
Yeah. So I did that, and that's where I actually got introduced to the Gleaners. I would take my youth group kids there, and then long story short, there wasn't room in a small town for a part-time pastor and a full-time pastor. There just wasn't the funds, and I said, you know what, I'm out. And there was a opening at the North Okanagan Valley Gleaners for someone to start, and so I started. And then after a couple of years working there, Harold retired. He was the manager, and he managed the plant, and they asked me to fill in, and I've been there ever since.
Well, that's so cool that you could tie in what your past was going all around the world helping people to actually bring it home and find an organization that is doing exactly that. Yeah. But you can do it locally and stay home and do it. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty neat.
I'd like to ask, if I can, just a side question, because I heard you say that you took your youth group kids to see what they're doing at Gleaners. Can you talk about why that was important for youth to experience that, and how you think that shifted their perspective?
Yeah, I think, you know, kids, I've done several trips with kids. We went to Mexico. We built a house for a family, and we did some other things. And kids love to serve, and they're looking for adults to actually just point them in the right direction. And so Gleaners, when we started going there, I was blown away. First of all, you get free coffee and goodies, so what kid doesn't want that? But
when I was there was carrot cake.
Yeah,
so
there's
were cinnamon buns. I don't remember. It was something delicious.
Always something home baked.
Yeah, we get a lot of stuff from Davison, so anyway, it's always good. We get pies this time of year, but anyway, just the camaraderie. There's amazing social aspect. You've got people, mostly seniors, that are working there. And they were running it, and they were telling us where all this food was going to and why we were doing it. And it was a real easy win to bring youth kids there, because it was a safe place for them to go, and everything's set up. So it's not like you have to pack lunches for kids and organize things and whatever. No, you just show up and you serve your time and you get to go home. And not only that, when they tell you how many meals that you were able to produce for people, I think at that time it was about 1,000 meals in a 4-hour shift for each person. We're double that now. We're up to about 2,000 meals per person.
And didn't you just gave us a crazy statistic just before we started recording this?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, we just finished our. We sent a load out to Turkey with Samaritan's Purse, and on that load had our 100 millionth meal on there. So
wow.
So that's since 2010.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Congratulations.
So amazing.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Because it's not only our organization. So we've got the Oliver Gleaners and the Fraser Valley Gleaners in BC. Between all of us this year, I think we're going to be close to 40 million servings we'll send out between all four of us, or all three of
Wow.
us. So I think we're going to hit probably 15 million this year. Fraser Valleys will be somewhere between 15 and 20, and then about 8 for the Oliver Gleaners. So, you know, that's a lot of food that these people are involved with food recovery.
All right, here we are. Today we have the Land to Table Network Society, which I'm excited to talk about. And representing them is the Executive Director, Liz Blakeway. So welcome, Liz, and we'd love to hear about how you got involved in this organization and what the organization does, because I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it, but maybe don't really know what you do.
Yeah, happy to. Land to Table is a food system network, which people are often like, what does that mean? We work across the regional food system. We started in the North Okanagan. We're branching out more toward the Shuswap now. But basically what we do is we're working to grow our local food economy, increase access to the food that's grown here, to the local food. We're working to create more resilient food systems and regenerative environments that include growing food and harvesting food and foraging food. And we're working to decolonize our food system. We began in about 2017 as a group of women from farming families who started a study circle. And what they were looking at is how to solve some of the problems that their farming families were bumping up against. How to ensure that our local small and medium-sized farms could thrive, because their family farms and many small and medium-sized farms in the Okanagan region were not thriving.
So what kind of problems were they bumping up against at the time?
To put it simply, they were bumping up against the global food system. Yeah. So in the 80s, a lot of our food systems were consolidated by corporations. So we have long global supply chains where our food is coming from California, Mexico, New Zealand in some cases. And that food was made more available in the Okanagan in most communities across Canada more conveniently and more cheaply. And it's really hard for our small scale farmers to compete against that global supply chain.
Right.
That's the crux of it.
Right.
Our global supply chain is the dominant supply chain now. And if we want community-based food security, if we want global food security, we need to make sure that there's a place in our supply chains or some redundancy built into our supply chains that includes our local small and medium-sized farmers.
Right. Because like you were saying when we were chatting earlier, that the more global you get, the bigger corporate focus you get, you lose sight of the little guy. You lose sight of those small farms and families who are farming for their own
communities.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think this is where we start to connect the local to the global as well.
Yeah.
We are experiencing the negative impacts of a global neoliberal supply chain, and then the only solutions to that are to rebuild a local, regional based supply chain where people actually care to support their farmers and care about the kind of food that our local farmers are producing, which include regenerative.
It's the kind of food that ends up on our own tables too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the quality of the food too, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and I mean we all kind of got a little bit of a taste of it when
literally.
Sorry to use that word, literally. In 2021, when we were all cut off from supply chains from the floods, and we all experienced what it looks like to not go to the store and be able to get what you want.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
It was a bit of an eye-opener for a lot of us, I think.
It was, and it was a kind of game changing for organizations like Land to Table, who is really advocating for more localized food systems and getting more fresh, nutritious food to vulnerable populations locally. People started to look to us to say, oh yeah, what you're doing is actually really important, because they had experienced empty grocery store shelves, I think 3 times by that point, twice during COVID, and then during that atmospheric river event.
It's crazy.
So climate chaos and disruptions are really highlighting the need to focus on regional-based local food systems.
What a great topic to finish this episode off. We're wrapping up an entire conversation around managing local resources, starting with taking care of the honeybees, taking care of the ecosystem that allows us to grow food. And looking at gleaners where they, help manage that food waste. But it's all part of that cycle of food now coming to supporting our local farmers.
I feel so privileged to do the work that I do. Food systems work it's new, relatively new. I didn't go to school for this. This wasn't a topic. And it's really complex. And I think what I've learned is that much of the work we do as a network is so relational. We can't recreate local food systems unless we're doing that in relationship with people, in relationship to our farmers who are growing the food, in relationship to our government decision makers who are creating policy that either support local food and local economies or don't. Local decision makers also make growing and access to land more accessible or not. We get to connect with social service agencies who are feeding our most vulnerable people and helping them connect with local, nutritious, fresh food. We get to connect with people who care a lot about our ecosystems and how we create more regenerative ecosystems that connect to our growing systems. So I get to do a lot of different things in this role.
And you must love food.
I also really love food.
I also really love food.
But I think the thing I love about food and local food systems and food work is that we get to we get to care for each other through food, through providing nourishing food, which is something we all need 3 times a day to be healthy people. Yeah. And we get to create healthy communities where people have agency and opportunities to connect into decision making around food that enables all sorts of things. And I can talk about projects that we're working on that are good examples of that too.
Yeah, let's hear about those.
What are you working on?
Yeah, so I mean, so many things, but one of the really cool examples that I think people may have heard about that Land to Table is, privileged to be invited into is what was formerly known as the BX Ranch lands. So it's just outside of Vernon in the BX area. It's about 135 acres. BX Ranchlands development plan was created a couple of years ago. Land to Table got to be a part of that. And it's land that the electoral areas now own. It's being held as an agriculture park, so it's public land that's dedicated to growing and sustainability, education, and some recreation. It's now called, in partnership with the Okanagan Indian Band, it was renamed as Shinchechamachalan Agriculture Park, and that means site of small crops and gardens.
Oh, cool.
That's beautiful.
That's
wow.
awesome.
This land will be shared. It's been made available to new farmers who want to lease land to get started. It'll be available for community farm development. There'll be a food forest go in there, a community garden go in there. So it's really an opportunity for land-based learning and growing at that community connected level.
Oh, that's so cool.
That is really
Very
great.
cool.
Yeah. I saw a similar parcel in Kelowna. It was called Helen's Acres, and they were able to lease plots of land. So I had some friends who are actually part of a JCI, local organization of JCI in Kelowna, that actually had a plot of land and grew food and donated it to women's shelters and food banks in Kelowna.
Yeah, they're one of the models that the regional district is looking at for community farm development there. And this is a long-term project, right? It's tons of potential, a lot of community involvement. Really amazing foresight by the electoral area directors who purchased the land instead of it being sold,
Right.
and is holding it as an agricultural park.
And what a great opportunity to also support mental health. Like, think about the people that are actually going onto the land and doing the gardening and getting their hands in the soil and feet in the soil.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a great support for our community.
There's going to be some really cool things
Yeah.
come about there. And
Yoga
that's-
on the farm.
Right? Who wouldn't want to do that?
Add some goats. We're happy.
Yeah. So Land to Table has been operating for 6 years now. And I think as a network, it's really central for us to take what we're hearing from the community, from the food system network. So the food system includes farmers, food processors, retailers, distributors, chefs, local government, Indigenous communities. Like, these are all the people, places, and processes that our food touches.
Hence
So-
the name network. It's in your
That's-
name, right?
That's
Yeah.
right. It's in our name.
Right.
And some people
That's
are like,
great.
what does that even mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we're working with this network who make up our local food system. And we've been hearing from them for years that one of the biggest missing pieces is having local infrastructure that supports local food getting to different places to feed the people who live here. So Land to Table has kind of taken all the information we've gathered and heard over the last 6 years, and we were invited to apply for a large food infrastructure grant through the United Way. Funding comes from the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. And it's $1 million grant to build local food infrastructure that hits on all of our key goals of our organization, supporting local farmers, building our local food economy, because we can't have community food security if we don't have our farmers. That just doesn't exist. We won't be
Right.
able to feed ourselves if we lose them. And we need to give them a reason to stay here. And we need to give them a reason to grow their businesses so that they can thrive. So this large food infrastructure grant will go towards creating a local food hub that will be developed and run by Land to Table in partnership with a local food distributor out of the old dairy building that is located in Armstrong. So yeah, it's great.
Perfect.
We're so
Wow.
excited.
I'm just imagining the amount of work that would have gone into that application.
It was a year-long kind of
Yeah.
proposal process.
Not 4 days.
Not
Wow.
4-day, not a 4-day grant cycle. No.
No.
No, definitely not. And again, really, I like to say that it was a 6-year process because we were ready for this grant, and funders knew we were ready for it because
Right.
of 6 years of collaboration as a network. And it's not like Land to Table gets to hold this work, and we're really privileged to do
That's
that. But it
exciting.
comes from the food system network here. So we're really proud to be able to bring that to life and to create wholesale market opportunities for our farmers. They can sell us bulk fruit and veg. We can process it, chop it, bag it, freeze it, make it available year round, and make sure that more of that food is going to social service agencies. So we're really targeting schools, food banks, other social service or food access providers, like the Good Food Box, like Turning Points, and eventually hospitals and care homes is what we're aiming
Wow.
for. So it's opening up a different market that farmers have a really hard time accessing otherwise.
Amazing.
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 Wow. Congratulations.
So-
That is
Thank you.
exciting for
Congratulations.
the organization, for our community.
For sure.
Yeah, that's really amazing
Yeah.
news.
Thank you. No pressure, right?
No, none at all.
Yes. So it all comes back to food,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I love food. You love food. We all love
Who
food.
doesn't love to eat? Who does not love to eat? Name one person. I don't even know anybody.
I don't know.
We all love food.
But where does it come from? Where does it go? And how can the community help in generating more food and maintaining our local food supply? Community action coming up next. So I know you talked about planting bee-friendly gardens. I think we talked about shopping local, using organic produce. Is there anything else that the community can do to be involved in protecting our bees, protecting our food supply?
I'd say talking to your farmers. Like, so if you're going to purchase like local fruits and veggies, I mean, just ask about what they're doing, like with pesticide use. Are they mindful of when pollinators are out in the air? Like, you can spray, say you are growing conventionally, you can spray early in the morning or late in the evening when the bees are back in their hive, and then they're not being exposed to the pesticides. So like asking questions, are they mindful of pollinators? Little things like in our own yards, like putting out a water source for bees. A lot of people note that they've got bees drowning in their swimming pools and things like that. So on the hot summer days, they are looking for fresh water. So it's as simple as filling an old dinner plate with water, and the bees can land on the rim and drink from it. And then when you're choosing flowers, it's also great at the nursery level to be checking that the plants haven't been treated with systemic pesticides. So neonicotinoids are one that you definitely want to avoid, because they've been shown to be a neurotoxin on bees. And those are sometimes at the greenhouses. They're being put into the seed, and then it's in the plant that you're purchasing, hoping to grow for the bees. And little do you know that in there is built in a pesticide that's harmful to them. So we're lucky there's so many amazing products of the hive. That's another one of our passions. But we were approached recently from a brewery out in Calgary looking to do a beer made with fireweed honey. And the goal of the beer was to give back to wildfire research, reforestation in areas affected by wildfire. And because of the fire we saw this year, they ended up shifting, and a lot of the proceeds went to the Jasper fire relief. But fireweed as a plant is actually one of the first plants to bloom after a fire. It's a pioneer species, and its roots actually live deep under the soil, so it's not affected by the fire burning at the surface. And it's this beautiful tall purple flower, and it makes one of the best honeys. They call it the champagne of honeys. It's mild, it's thick, it's not overly sweet, it doesn't crystallize very quickly whatsoever. And so they wanted to use that honey so that they could bring awareness and to give back. So we were really happy to join up with that. And it's a family-owned brewery called Best of Kin out in Calgary that we partnered with, and it's called Fire Bloom is the name of the beer.
Oh, cool.
It's so
I love
cool.
that. That's really neat.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'd like to comment on the volunteers at Gleaners. They're so wonderful and welcoming and chatty. They're full of stories. But I really think it's an important aspect of our community that you said a lot of them were seniors, and that they have a place to go and share their stories and feel like they have their own community, right?
Yeah, we're keeping seniors off the streets.
Yeah. They're troublemakers in reality.
Yeah. So basically with seniors, it's such a great place for them. You know, a lot of times you get seniors, maybe I don't know, they need something to do other than watch TV and play bridge. So this provides a place for them to do that. And, you know, they love it. And especially, you know, most of the vegetable production is actually men. We're about 80% men in there. And most of these guys have worked since they were young. They want to work. They feel productive when they're working. And it's just given that extra social benefit. You know, they're part of something. Yeah. They're retired, but they're still involved. They're sort of part of something big that's helping people. You know, I've got a guy there. He just turned 94. And he's there.
So great. Wow.
He's there 3 days a week, and he outworks most of the younger
That's
guys.
amazing.
So, yeah. But we're running between 4,000 and 5,000 pounds a day through there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's pretty huge.
Just going back to the having a space for seniors to go volunteer and be involved and have a community.
Yeah.
I just want to comment on the aspect of mental health.
Yeah.
Because that
for sure.
One topic permeates all of our sustainable practices.
Yeah.
You know, if we can feel like we're contributing to a community that really supports mental health in our area. So I think it's wonderful to have Gleaners in our valley. It's incredible. So how can the community participate? What are things that people can do in our community to help Gleaners or help solve the problem?
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. You could always buy something from the store. Yeah, that helps. And those funds really
from the Gleaner's store.
Yeah, the Gleaner store.
The used furniture store.
Yeah, the used furniture store.
Yeah.
But you could also come volunteer. The other thing is if you have maybe you're a farmer, or maybe you have people that you know that own warehouses or are part of, something bigger, we can actually physically dehydrate more than we're doing. Our dryers are full pretty much every day unless something's gone wrong. So the only way for us to produce more food is to bring other items in that are dry items, like say dried beans or rice or pasta, that kind of stuff. Oatmeal, we've done cereal, because we have the ability not only to dehydrate stuff but to repackage stuff. So we could take any of those ingredients and we get some bags and we have the ability to repackage it and send it out. And then we don't have to put it through the dryers. The biggest problem our growers have is finding pickers. Someone wants to arrange a picking team. There's farms that have said, hey, we'll give you half our orchard if you can pick it. But
oh wow!
But we just don't have the resources to do that, because we'd be using our main volunteers that are running the processing to do that. But if someone wants to arrange picking, hey, we'd take it. So
that's great. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Russ. It was great to have you.
I love that. That's perfect.
Here with us. Yeah,
perfect.
It was really good.
Yep.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here, and thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Russ. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Short of coming to the farm, learning about farming, doing stuff on the land, how can the community contribute to what Land to Table is working on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Land to Table is maybe a little bit unique as an organization in that we aren't providing direct programs and services, but we do a lot of support with organizations who are providing the programming. So for example, we work with the Good Food Box, helping support them in some organizational strategic development and sustainable growth. And they have seen a tremendous amount of growth in our community since COVID, right? There's a lot of people who are food has become quite unaffordable for more people. And that's a major problem. So we are working closely with the organizations who are supporting community in different ways through food. We work really closely with food banks to help them access, or even social service agencies like Turning Points who are feeding people, helping ensure that they have access to the local food and like organic fruit and vegetables to feed the populations that are connected to their services. So we're kind of like in the background working at a higher food systems level to make sure that our farmers are connected into these programs, to make sure that people have access to local, nutritious, fresh, organic sometimes food. And then connecting across different organizations as well as institutions to change systems at a policy level. So we're doing a project with UBC Okanagan, helping them to access more local food from our local farmers into their food services and their all-you-can-eat dining hall that was developed a couple of years ago. So we work in close partnership with organizations that are serving people directly, just because we think that we are hearing that kind of support is needed in our community.
For sure. And collaboration in Vernon is second to none. Vernon is the community of collaboration. And that's what we've learned through this entire journey of Backyards to Boardrooms, is everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, 100%. And I think collaboration is the key to making change and having impact in our communities. It's not a secret anymore, right?
No.
That's where success happens. That's where you ensure that community has what they need. So I think buying local food as much as you can, that's not always attainable to people. And that's why we're making sure that it's available in other avenues. But supporting your local farmer, showing up to your farmer's market if you can, engaging in some of these like community gardens, showing up to like our local government, City of Vernon, just redid their official community plan, showing up and telling them how you want them to support local food. Like, these are all ways that we can have impact in our local community that I think will reverberate out as we're needing to start planning for disruption caused by climate chaos, and needing to make sure that we're connecting globally through our food system in the ways that we need to, and that we're creating our local food system in ways that support our local communities.
So with that, thank you, Liz. This was very enlightening and a wonderful conversation. We really appreciate you making the time for us.
Yes,
thank you so much.
Liz. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
So coming out of our last episode was about waste management, managing where all the waste goes.
Recycle, reuse,
It starts,
what are they?
The 5 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, refill, repair.
And there was one more. It was a bit of a surprise. It kind of caught us off. Huh?
Refill was the one. Refill, repair.
Refill,
rot.
Repair.
Rot.
That's it. Refill, repair, reuse, recycle, and rot. But recycle was kind of the last one in the chain, right?
Yeah. So that was episode 4. Coming out of that to talking about managing the natural resources. So using what we do have, making sure that it doesn't end up in the waste.
Right.
Making sure that we have fresh fruit and vegetables and food on our tables. So it's about supporting local farmers and supporting local ecosystems.
And food distribution channels.
Yeah. So that episode I really enjoyed all 3 of those conversations.
Yeah.
I learned so much again, and we still have more of a journey to go. So stay tuned for our next episode.
You got it. Over and out.
Thanks for listening to Backyards to Boardrooms.
Don't forget to subscribe, and all the links to the cool things you learned are down in the notes below.
Bye!
Bye!